Usually when you sit down in a dark theater
Yeah.
and like the lights dim and the screen lights up, there is this unspoken contract between you and the filmmaker.
Right, the expectation of being entertained.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you are there to be entertained. Maybe you'll shed a tear or, maybe you'll learn a little something. But ultimately, you expect to walk out a couple of hours later, grab some food, and just go on with your life.
The movie stays on the screen.
Right. And you stay safely in your reality. But then you encounter a certain type of film, and suddenly that contract is just completely shredded. You aren't just watching a movie anymore.
No, absolutely not. You are enduring an experience.
An experience that feels explicitly designed to break you, really.
That is a very powerful way to frame it, actually, because we are incredibly accustomed to cinema being a safe space,
Sure, like a window.
Exactly. It acts as a window we can look through, witnessing terrible things without actually getting cut by the glass. But the directors we're looking at today, they fundamentally reject that safety.
They really do. And that brings us to the focus of today's deep dive. I have to warn you right up front, the material we're analyzing today is heavy.
Very heavy.
We are looking at some of the most harrowing cinema ever made, specifically Holocaust and war films. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We are going to explore why certain films, like Come and See The Zone of Interest and Waltz with Bashir, are considered absolutely essential viewing by critics and audiences because they are profoundly traumatizing.
Yeah, and that's a difficult concept for a lot of people to grasp at first.
Right. We want to understand exactly how their surreal, nightmare-like narratives physically and emotionally alter the modern viewer.
It is heavy, but I mean, it is incredibly vital because we aren't just doing a round of movie trivia here.
No, definitely not.
We are breaking down the mechanics of empathy and memory and horror. We're examining how these filmmakers deliberately shatter the traditional, comfortable rules of storytelling.
They really don't care about a 3-act structure.
Not at all. They aren't trying to give you a neat history lesson with a clear beginning, middle, and end. They are trying to force the audience into a state of psychological shock.
Which is, it's a bold move.
It is. They want to simulate the absolute disorientation of trauma so that you physically cannot just walk away and forget about it.
And you see that intention immediately when you look at how these directors manipulate our physical senses. They just completely obliterate that safe distance of the screen.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Elem Klimov's 1985 Soviet masterpiece, Come and See. That's the ultimate example of this. Klimov was a survivor of the Battle of Stalingrad himself, actually.
Which heavily informed his entire approach.
Right. And he famously stated that his goal was to make a film so cruel, so unrelenting, that no one could actually watch it.
Yeah, his co-writer actually pushed back on the script at first, saying, they couldn't show these things.
Really?
Yeah.
What did Klimov say to that?
His response was essentially, let them not look. We must leave this behind as evidence. Yeah. The film follows a young Belarusian boy named Floyora in 1943, and it is just a relentless physical and sensory assault on the viewer.
Relentless almost feels like an understatement, to be honest.
Yeah.
The lengths they went to achieve that realism, honestly,
Yeah.
it's stuff you could never, ever get away with today.
No, never. The safety protocols just wouldn't allow it.
Right. They used live ammunition on set, actual bullets flying past the actors.
It's terrifying to even think about.
They even shot a cow with live fire on camera.
Yeah.
And the young lead actor, Alexei Kravchenko, he was genuinely terrified. He was put under so much psychological stress that he started growing gray hairs during the shoot.
At, 14 years old?
Yeah. He literally had to be hypnotized just to get through the production. And as a viewer, you feel that raw, unsimulated terror. You watch it, and it just leaves you completely hollowed out.
That visceral transference, right? Making you feel the exhaustion and the terror of the protagonist. That is entirely intentional, and it's heavily driven by the mechanics of the cinematography.
Yeah, let's talk about the camera work.
So Klimov uses a Steadicam to constantly follow Floyora, but he pairs it with these very specific split diopter shots.
Okay, pause on that for a second. For anyone who isn't a film student, what exactly does a split diopter shot do to the image?
Sure. Imagine a lens where half of it is focused on something right in front of your face, and the other half is focused on something far away in the background.
Like it's split right down the middle.
Exactly. Normally, a camera has to choose either the foreground is blurry or the background is blurry, but a split diopter keeps both in absolute, terrifyingly sharp focus simultaneously.
So you have Floyora's horrified, dirt-covered face right up against the lens, And at the exact same time, you can perfectly see like a village burning in the deep background.
Precisely. It creates this deeply unnatural, claustrophobic environment. Evil feels omnipresent.
Yeah, because there is nowhere in the frame for your eye to rest safely. You can't look away from the boy's face, and you can't look away from the horror behind him.
You're trapped with him. And
Oh,
then there's the sound design, which,
oh man, the sound design. This is what really stuck with me. When you think of a typical war movie, you think of loud, booming explosions.
right, very Saving Private Ryan style.
Exactly. But Klimov does something completely different during a bombardment scene. An artillery shell hits close to Flora, and Klimov hits you with this deafening blast, but then all the ambient sound just vanishes.
Just completely props out.
Yeah, the screaming, the dirt falling, the wind, it's all gone. And it's replaced by this piercing, high-pitched, ringing noise.
Which is the exact acoustic reality of blast deafness. He forces you, the viewer, to physically experience the protagonist's ruptured eardrums.
Right. You aren't just watching a kid cover his ears on a screen. Your own ears are physically ringing in the theater. It's wildly uncomfortable.
And that discomfort is the whole point. It bypasses your intellectual detachment. You stop thinking, oh, this character is in danger, and your own nervous system starts reacting to the stimulus.
It just drags you right into the physical reality of the war.
It does. But, you know, physical immersion is just one approach. When you look at the evolution of how trauma is depicted in film, you eventually hit the exact opposite extreme.
Which brings us to Jonathan Glazer.
Right. Glazer's 2023 film, The Zone of Interest, completely abandons the physical assault of Come and See. But somehow it achieves this identical, suffocating level of psychological trauma.
Yeah, it really does.
What's fascinating here is how Glazer weaponizes detachment. The film centers on the commandant of Auschwitz, Rudolf Höss, and his family.
Right, and they are living these seemingly normal, idyllic lives.
Exactly. In a beautiful house that quite literally shares a wall with the extermination camp. But Glazer refuses to use traditional cinematic grammar to tell this story.
He doesn't tell us how to feel.
Right. He doesn't use dramatic close-ups to show us their facial expressions.
Mhm.
He doesn't pan the camera to build tension. He uses what he calls neutral light and wide, static observational shots.
It's like security camera footage. It doesn't care about your feelings at all. It just watches them being utterly mundane, like they're having pool parties. They're tending to their beautiful garden, picking raspberries.
Because Glazer doesn't want to place himself on a moral plane above the characters by overtly judging them with the camera. He just presents them exactly as they are.
Which is somehow worse.
It is. The trauma for the viewer, in this case, is entirely auditory. While the family is drinking tea and chatting about their day, the film's menacing soundscape is playing underneath everything.
Yeah, you hear the unyielding sounds of people screaming, sporadic gunshots, and that constant low industrial roaring of the crematoria.
It never stops.
And visually, the only hint of what's happening over that wall is at night, when the children's bedrooms are illuminated red by the flames of the ovens. It's like the horror is a radioactive leak.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, like in Come and See, you're standing at ground zero feeling the blast wave, the dirt hitting your face. But in the zone of interest, you can't see the radiation. You just hear the Geiger counter screaming in the background while these people eat dinner.
That is a brilliant analogy. It exposes how easily human beings can normalize absolute devastation just to maintain their own comfort.
It's chilling.
There's a moment that perfectly captures this radioactive bleed, actually. Rudolph takes his kids swimming in a nearby idyllic river, and suddenly he trips over something in the water.
Oh, I remember the scene.
He looks closer, and it's a piece of a human jawbone. He realizes they are swimming in the ash of cremated Jews that has been dumped upstream, and he has to frantically pull his children out and scrub them clean.
Right. The reality of what he does finally physically breaches his sanctuary.
Exactly.
Okay, but I have to push back on this whole concept for a second. We are talking about subjecting actors to live fire and subjecting audiences to psychological torment and ringing ears. Is it actually ethical for filmmakers to traumatize their audiences? And in Klimov's case, to arguably traumatize a child actor, just to make a historical point?
That is the central, unavoidable tension of Holocaust and war cinema. I mean, it's a debate that has been going on for decades.
Right. Where you draw the line?
Well, if you sanitize the events to make them palatable, you insult the victims and turn mass murder into cheap entertainment.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if you portray it with absolute unflinching accuracy, you risk voyeurism and traumatizing the unconsenting viewer. Glazer avoids the voyeurism by keeping the violence entirely off-screen, making us confront our own capacity for indifference.
And Klimov goes the other way.
Right. Klimov forces us to confront the raw brutality so we never forget what humans are capable of. Both approaches basically argue that to truly grasp this level of history, profound discomfort is not a flaw in the movie.
It's a requirement.
Exactly. It's a moral requirement.
So physical immersion is devastating and auditory detachment is terrifying. But what happens when the human brain literally cannot process that physical reality? Like, it just fractures.
Yeah.
And you can't film a fractured mind with a standard live-action camera.
Exactly. When an event is so horrific that it blasts apart our perceptual frames, a traditional linear story just feels completely false. It doesn't capture the internal reality at all.
Which brings us to Ari Folman's Waltz with Bashir. Now, this is a documentary, which usually means talking heads and archival footage, but this film is entirely animated.
Which was a revolutionary choice at the time.
Yeah. Folman is an Israeli filmmaker trying to recover his own repressed memories of the 1982 Lebanon War, specifically his proximity to the Sabra and Shatila massacre. The film opens with this incredibly vivid, hypersaturated dream sequence.
The dogs?
Right, it's 26 wild, vicious dogs charging through a city, their eyes glowing, just barking furiously.
That sequence is vital because it establishes how trauma disguises itself. Those dogs are a screen memory for a fellow soldier, Boaz.
Right, because of what he had to do.
Yeah. During the war, Boaz couldn't bring himself to shoot human beings. So his unit made him shoot the stray dogs in the villages with a silencer so they wouldn't bark and give away their position.
Oh, man.
And the animation allows those dogs to return as these undead, distorted figures of guilt. They act as psychological stand-ins for the human victims he couldn't save.
Let's bring this back to the listener for a second.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a car crash or a moment of extreme, sudden panic, and suddenly everything feels like it's moving in slow motion?
Like time just stops.
Yeah, like you're watching yourself from the outside. That is your brain pulling you out of reality to protect you from the shock. That's exactly what this film visualizes.
It does it so well.
There is this one scene about a photographer at the Beirut Hippodrome during the fighting. To protect his mind from the sheer brutality he was witnessing, his brain started viewing the war as a series of still frames.
Like he was literally just looking through a camera lens.
Right.
That's dissociation, a classic, very common psychological defense mechanism.
Right. And the animation shows us exactly what he's experiencing. These still drawn images of bound man, a tank, a bleeding body. But then the camera breaks.
The reality leaks in.
He sees these starving, dying horses on the racetrack, and the animation suddenly changes. It stops being still frames. The horses neigh, they tremble, they fall over, and they are swarmed by flies.
The realistic movement of the animation there symbolizes the exact moment this man's mental shield shatters. He's forced to accept the reality of the horror.
And the scene ends with the reflection of the soldier in the dying horse's eye, which is just haunting.
It's a brilliant visualization of how trauma warps perception. You cannot capture that internal psychological fracture with a live-action reenactment.
No, it just looks silly.
It would just look like an actor staring at some horses. The animation makes the invisible internal trauma visible, and Folman uses color the exact same way.
Oh, the color shift is incredible.
As his memory gets closer to the reality of the massacre, the vibrant, dreamlike colors just fade away. The film shifts to a harsh, stark, two-tone orange and black.
And it isn't just perception that fractures. It's time itself. Alain Resnais explored this perfectly in his 1959 film, Hiroshima Mon Amour.
He did. That film completely resists the urge to make a neat, coherent story.
It really bounces around.
It focuses on a French woman who had her head shaved for loving a German soldier during the occupation, and she's now having an affair with a Japanese man in post-bomb Hiroshima. But because of her trauma, the identities blur. The past and the present just bleed together.
It's very disorienting.
The film is elliptical and confusing because trauma itself is an unordered, overwhelming memory that just refuses to stay in the past.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I have to admit, when I first thought about animating a war documentary, I was a bit skeptical.
How so?
Well, doesn't drawing a war like turning into a cartoon actually soften the blow for the viewer? Doesn't it put an artificial wall between us and the reality of the victims?
You would naturally think so, but the artificiality of the animation actually achieves the exact opposite effect. Yeah, think about the world we live in today. We are completely desensitized by a constant flood of live-action news footage and hyper-realistic violence.
That's true.
We see a real photo of a war zone on our feed, and our brains just filter it out as background noise, We scroll right past it.
Ah, so instead of a Trojan horse, it's more like a vaccine.
That's a very good way to think about it.
Yeah, a vaccine uses a modified, slightly artificial version of a virus to bypass the body's immune system. The animation uses a stylized version of reality to bypass our emotional immune system.
That is exactly how it functions. By presenting the horror through this highly stylized, artistic lens, the pain and the guilt actually feel more piercing. It demands a different kind of attention from you.
You can't just glaze over it.
Right, you have to actively engage with the image to decode it, rather
Right.
than just passively consuming another photograph of a war zone.
Which logically brings us to the ultimate debate in this deep dive, the ethics of representation. If trauma is this hard to capture, if it fractures the mind and destroys time, should we even be trying to recreate it?
And that is exactly where we meet Claude Lanzmann. He directed Shoah in 1985, which is an agonizing 9-hour documentary about the Holocaust.
9 hours.
Yes. And Lanzmann had an absolute uncompromising rule for his film. No archival footage, no actors, and absolutely no historical reenactments.
He viewed the Holocaust as a ring of fire, an absolute boundary that you simply cannot cross.
Yes. To Lanzmann, if you put an actor in a striped uniform and build a fake gas chamber on a Hollywood soundstage, you aren't honoring the past. You are trivializing the unique, unfathomable horror of the genocide.
You're just playing pretend.
Exactly. You are turning the deaths of millions into a movie set. His approach relied entirely on the indexicality of oral testimonies.
Wait, indexicality, that sounds like a textbook. What does that actually mean in practice?
Fair enough. It basically means the undeniable physical proof that something occurred. It's the difference between an actor reciting a script and an actual survivor sitting in front of a camera speaking their own truth in real time.
With all the actual hesitations and pain.
Right, with the pain written on their actual face. Lanzmann paired those present-day interviews with long, slow shots of the empty landscapes where the camps used to be.
But the way he gets those testimonies, it's incredibly intense.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't just want the timeline of events. He wants the effective truth. He wants the body memory.
He pushes them very hard.
Yeah, there's this one example with a barber named Bamba. Lanzmann wants him to talk about his time in Treblinka, where his job was cutting the hair of women before they were sent to the gas chambers.
A horrific reality to live with.
But Lanzmann doesn't just sit him in a chair in a quiet room and ask him to recount the timeline.
No, he goes much, much further. He actually rents a working barbershop, gives Bamba a pair of scissors, and has him cut a customer's hair while conducting the interview.
Just imagine the sound of those scissors. The rhythmic, trance-like physical action of his old job, the snipping, the combing.
It brings it all right back.
It unlocks this deeply suppressed body memory. The physical act bypasses his mental blocks entirely, and he breaks down completely. It's an agonizing 3 minutes of film.
It's very hard to watch.
He just stops. He can't speak, but his hands are still moving, still holding the scissors. His body remembers everything.
It perfectly highlights the difference between episodic memory, which is just recalling the facts of what happened, and body memory, where the trauma is literally incarnated in the muscles and gestures.
Wow.
Lanzmann captures the trauma living right there in the present moment, rather than pretending to recreate the past with actors.
And the tragic reality is that this body memory doesn't just end with the survivors, it gets passed down. It rewires the next generation.
Generational trauma.
Exactly. We see this explored heavily in Julia von Heinz's film Treasure. It stars Stephen Fry and Lena Dunham, and it's about a father-daughter trip to Poland in the 1990s. But it focuses squarely on second-generation trauma.
Which is a perspective we honestly rarely see given this much breathing room in cinema.
Yeah, usually it's just about the survivors themselves.
Right. But here, we see the father, Edek, using constant exhausting humor and charm to mask his paralyzing fear. He survived Auschwitz, but he is utterly terrified of returning to his family home in Lodz.
And for good reason, honestly.
Yes, he recalls the very real post-war Kielce massacre, where Jewish survivors who tried to return to their homes were murdered by local mobs.
And instead of just giving us a plot summary of their trip, the film dives into how growing up in a house governed by that masked terror physically rewired his daughter, Ruth.
It shaped her entire worldview.
Right. She grew up with a mother who woke up screaming in the night. When your baseline for safety as a child is a parent who is constantly terrified, your own nervous system adapts to that fear.
The trauma is inherited.
It really is. But what I found really fascinating about Treasure is how morally complex it allows the present-day Polish characters to be.
It completely embraces the messiness of post-war relations.
Yeah. When Edith and Ruth finally get into his old family home, they literally have to bribe the current Polish residents just to walk through the door.
And the residents are very defensive.
Very. They deny having any of the family's old belongings, but then they literally serve Edict tea out of his own grandmother's china. And once the secret is out, they try to extort Ruth for every penny they can get for the remaining items.
But the director is very careful not to demonize them, which is a crucial detail.
Right. She points out the profound, grinding poverty in post-Soviet Poland. She essentially asks the audience, honestly, who wouldn't take the chance to earn money if your family was starving?
It's all about survival.
Yeah, the filmmakers even intentionally removed the ghost of Auschwitz commander Rudolf Höss from the original script to keep the focus entirely on these messy, painful human dynamics.
It's a grounded, incredibly complex reality, and it forces the viewer to sit with uncomfortable moral gray areas, rather than giving them a simple, satisfying story of good versus evil.
Okay, but let me ask you this as we wrap up. Audiences universally love traditional, heroic Hollywood narrative.
Of course we do.
We love movies like Schindler's List. It's moving, it gives us a clear hero, it gives us a sense of hope, and crucially, it gives us a resolution. Are these challenging, surreal, and deeply uncomfortable films, the ones that assault our senses, fracture time, and refuse to give us closure, are they the only way to ensure we don't turn mass tragedy into popcorn entertainment?
Well, they might not be the only way, but they are an absolutely essential counterbalance.
A counterbalance to the Hollywood ending.
Right. Films like Schindler's List serve a vital purpose in creating broad awareness and empathy on a massive scale. But the danger of the traditional Hollywood narrative is that it provides catharsis.
It lets you off the hook.
Exactly. When the credits roll, the music swells, and you cry, it allows you to feel like the trauma has been resolved. The films we've discussed today, Come and See, Waltz with Bashir, The Zone of Interest, Shoah, they actively refuse to give you that catharsis.
They deny it completely.
They prove that true understanding requires you to carry a piece of that unresolved burden with you when you leave the theater.
So what does this all mean for us as modern viewers?
It means these films are not meant to be passively consumed. By using sensory assaults, surreal animation, and observational dread, they force you to actively bear the psychological weight of history. They remind us that the trauma of the past isn't a neat story with a happy ending.
It's not just a closed book.
No, it's a fractured, ongoing reality that fundamentally shapes the present.
And they hold up a mirror to how we process that reality today. Which brings me back to one final thought on the zone of interest.
Okay.
We watch that family tending their beautiful garden, completely ignoring the screams and the smoke right next door, and we judge them. We think, how could they possibly live like that?
We distance ourselves from them.
Exactly. But think about our lives right now. In an era where we can sit comfortably in our own gardens, safely looking at our screens, endlessly scrolling through real-time global atrocities on our phones while we drink our coffee. Aren't we all, in some way, living right next to the wall?
Wow. That is a deeply unsettling question, and exactly the kind of uncomfortable, necessary reflection these films demand of us.
It is a lot to carry. Thank you for joining us on this intense deep dive. If you haven't seen these films, we highly encourage you to seek them out and experience their impact for yourself. Just maybe clear your schedule for a few days afterward. Take care of yourselves.